like to introduce and please welcome our speaker today and author, Kim Kuhl.
Can you all hear me? Maybe it's the, I guess it's the angle of it. Okay. Just wave at me if you can't hear and we'll try and adjust this. I'm so happy to be here. What a wonderful lunch we had. I wish my paper didn't deadline my section on Mondays or I'd be here. And we got a nice day. It's a little windy. If I get sideways, I'll try and roll back towards you. I've been coming to Venice since the first time I was here was 1959. And that was actually just before the circus came. The reason the circus ended up down here was in 1956, they were performing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it was in the summertime. They were there for a 4-week run. At the end of 2 weeks, they figured out that they didn't have the money to keep going for even a few more days. So they literally took down their 57 tents and put everything on the train and came home to Venice. At that point, or to Sarasota rather, and at that point they had to figure out what were they going to do. Were they going to try and continue to send out a 100-car train and all these performers? It was a tough time, so they briefly switched to a truck show, cut the size of the circus down, and changed their routes. And within a couple years, they sold their 200 acres of land in Sarasota. It's now a Bay Oak subdivision and has a bunch of houses on it. But for a while, it was where they built all new tents every year, where they rehearsed all when they were in winter quarters. That was their winter quarters. And the reason they ended up in Venice was the president of our Chamber of Commerce. He heard that they were having troubles and they were selling that big parcel of land and only needing a smaller parcel. And so he called up and made them a deal with 15 acres at Venice Airport. That enabled them to save a lot of money. And so they built an arena, which was a replica on the inside of Madison Square Garden circa 1960.
Wow.
And everything was identical. It was the same size where all the center ring and all the 3 rings were. With fewer seats, they had about 4,500 seats. But they had backstage area that was similar in size, and they had enough land on which to store the elephants and the horses and the lions and tigers, everything else. They had a round building that they built when they hired Gunther Gebel-Williams in 1968, and he used that for his Animal Act training. The elephants were kind of tethered outside, but I guess they didn't mind that. So in those days, before insurance companies started causing trouble, you could literally go and look over the fence and you could see all the animals. You could see Gunther working with them outside sometimes. I think you could even go into the arena and catch a glimpse of rehearsals. Nowadays, no way, which is too bad because I think some of the rehearsals would have been interesting. Of course, you don't want to be there when an act falls. Like 2 years ago, they were the Melendez were practicing their 8-man pyramid, and I didn't realize that they do that thing over and over and over. And it was a hot, sunny day, and they were in a tent, which was really hot, and they fell. Thank God nobody was hurt very bad. Well, one girl was, but everybody else was fine. One of the guys that was on the bottom ring of the pyramid actually fell off the wire, got up, went outside, pulled out a cell phone and called his mother and said, "We're fine." The person who was hurt was the Melendez youngest girl that was and she was up on the top in a chair, I think. And so she fell 50 feet. She has been back on the wire since. She was in the hospital and had a lot of reconstructive surgery, but she's back performing. I couldn't believe that, but circus people are tougher than the average person, I guess. Anyway, the circus showed up in Venice in 1960, It was the end of the 1959 run, basically. The arena wasn't quite finished, but it was close enough. And so they were here to rehearse for the next year. And they started, gradually they were doing better financially. And then in 1968, somebody named Feld, who was a rock and roll promoter, bought the circus. And he was a fabulous promoter. So within a few years, he had found out about Gunther Gebel-Williams, the famous animal trainer. He already had Clyde Beatty and a few other famous people. But he went to Germany, discovered this wonderful animal trainer, and hired him. But there was one caveat. Gunther would not come to America unless the entire Circus Williams came with him. Because he knew that he was the star of that show, and had he left, it probably would have folded. It was a small family circus. So all of a sudden, Mr. Feld had an entire, an extra circus, basically. So the only thing to do was to basically start a second troupe. He had two famous animal trainers. He would get, a few more clowns. Except, oh wait a minute, they didn't have enough clowns. So then they had to start Clown College. Because clowns are not just famous because they're funny and entertain people, but if there's any kind of a mishap, if the arena catches on fire or something horrible happens, clowns are the ones who guide people to safety. When they had that awful fire up in Connecticut and back in the 30s, it was the clowns who got people out of the tent. There would have been far more deaths had the clowns not been there to help people know where the exits were. So anyway, so they started Clown College, which was in Venice, 1968, and by 1996, they had graduated 1,200 clowns. Even the greatest show on earth does not need 1,200 clowns. Of course, the Ringling Circus is tough on clowns. When you join that circus, if you're good enough to get a contract, at the end of the year, you want a contract for the next year, you better have something new and better than what you were doing this past year. If you only did a double somersault, it better be a triple the next year or you weren't coming back. And the more people graduated from Clown College, the tougher they could be on clowns. So, anyway, we ended up having a lot of good clowns that came out of Clown College. And one of them we're honoring at the new Circus Museum, which is going to be in a train car at the depot in Venice. And the car is already there. You can go and see it with the banner on the sign that says Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. And soon after, I don't know, have any of you been to Venice Theater in the past couple of years?
Yes.
Since Tim Whiskerhoff has been the set designer? Aren't they spectacular?
Yeah, they are.
He had 12 years designing windows for Saks Fifth Avenue in New York. He's just a genius when it comes to set design. And I was just at Withgate Misbehaving on Saturday, and that set's spectacular too, so just as an aside. Anyway, I called him up. I think he knew my name because I had mentioned him in a couple of reviews of shows. And I said, is there any chance you could come and help us on this committee? We've been trying to get a circus museum going, and we have a train car, and we just need some guidance and how to go. We have a rough idea of how we want it to be designed, but he said yes. So while the pandemic had Venice Theater closed, he was over at the train car almost every day, hours and hours, painting things on the wall, and he basically did the whole design. We had figured out that we wanted a small room that was 4 by 6. Those were called the bunk and a trunk room, that new hires at the circus, beginner clowns, showgirls, people that were like the least important as far as what they were paid the least and whatever, they got stuck in a 4 by 6 foot room with all their possessions, and they were traveling in that room for 10, 11 months of the year. They could put their extra stuff under the bed, maybe hang a bike from the ceiling or something, you know, whatever they needed to have with them as they traveled all over the United States had to be in that room. So that was an adventure. But so anyway, we've got Peggy Williams, who was a star clown in the circus, and she's going to duplicate the room that she had. And she started out as one of the female graduates of Clown College in the early days, worked her way up to being a vice president of the Feld Enterprises and a historian for the circus. So she's doing that for us, which is great. The next room is going to be sort of a mid-sized room that a mid-level performer or maybe somebody who was with the business end of the circus, and they would travel and they would get a room that was larger than that. It might even have its own bathroom. It was, you know, pleasure. So Chuck Sidlow is going to donate a lot of his props and costumes, and he was the youngest boss clown of the circus. A boss clown is basically the one who supervises all the other clowns, checks out what they're going to do when they're performing, and basically approves if they're going to come back the next year and everything. So, bless his heart, he's become a really close friend of mine, because I've been on 3 different committees trying to get this museum done, because it's great that we have the Ringling Museum in Sarasota. I love it. It's the 12th most valuable college or museum in the country. It's the #1 most important college or university museum. And then it has a circus museum. And have you all been up there and seen the Tibbles Learning Center with the miniature circus? That's incredible. I have my name on the wall up there, by the way. You can't see it, it's been painted over. But I was there the day that Howard Tibbles was touring around, and there was still a dirt floor. They weren't ready to install anything yet, but he was showing me that, you know, his miniature circus, which covers 3,800 square feet, was going to be here. And there's this, the train tracks were going to be there, and this is the arena, and, you know, everything was the way it was going to be. And so he hands me a can of green spray paint. He said, "Here, paint your name on the wall." So I am an artist, but I'm not an artist with spray paint. So I think I got a little too far back, so my name was really big on the wall. Anyway, it's long since been covered. But then I was there the day that he was unloading this huge thing. And he had built 55 train cars. He started when he was about 19, and he was a freshman at the University of North Carolina. And he built these miniature train cars. Each train car has 4 wagons. And then he created all the tents also. The only thing he hired out were the little miniature people, and he needed 10,000 folding chairs to go into the tents for the cook, you know, where the people would eat, and where all the people would come to watch the circus and that sort of thing. And in my jewelry box, my most valuable possession is one of those miniature chairs. It's just, you know, it's like 2 inches high, and it actually folds and unfolds. If any of you have seen the folding chairs back from the 20s, which are pretty scarce to see anymore, but if you ever have, these chairs are identical, made out of plastic, and they actually unfold. His wife, bless her heart, unfolded 7,000 of them for the display. If that's not true love, I don't know what is. And she also put up with moving to Sarasota. What a terrible thing, right? Anyway, so then when he started laying out the circus, I said, "How do you do something like this? You're 3,800 square feet. Do you start in the middle and work your way out?" "No," he said, "I'm putting it up the way the circus put it up. The first thing is you unload the food and the cook tent and all of that. You got to feed the employees, and you have to feed the performers. So that's first." Well, that happens to be like in a corner. And here's this 3,800 square foot huge area, and he goes, that's where he starts at. I'm thinking, well, I hope they have trap doors and things, which they do, so that they can come up in the center if something, you know, falls over, gets blown over, whatever. Though it's all sealed behind glass, so it's pretty safe. But he set it up. It took about 1.5 years because he did it all himself. It had never been displayed in its entirety anywhere. The most he ever had was one time he had about 3,000 square feet on display. And he has since added some more train cars. The train tracks actually have a gold spike in one of the wood beams that go across below the tracks, which is just like when they join up tracks from like the East Coast to the West Coast, they would put in a gold spike. So he did that for his train tracks also. Amazing man. And then he has the largest collection of circus posters probably in the world. And so another reason that he donated his $12 million and this miniature circus to the Ringlings Museum was so that those posters could be displayed more often. We're just so lucky in this area to have this fabulous museum and people like that. We're also very lucky to have Venice Theater, second most important community theater in the whole United States. $4 million a year budget, incredible. If you haven't seen Eat Misbehave, and you may not have because it just opened Friday, definitely go see that. It's fabulous. Back to the circus, the main room in our train car museum is going to be basically about a third of what Gunther Gebel-Williams' family would travel with him most of the time, and they had an entire train car. They not only had a bathroom, they had a washer and a dryer, large screen television. My parents' former television set is going to be in the room because it's just like what they would have had. And it was state of the art for about 1970. Even had a telephone built into it. I don't know how that ever worked, but anyway. So that's going to be in the train car, and I'm so excited to have a little part of me and my family that's going to be in it. And Sigrid Gebel has been on, she's the only person, she's been on all three committees with me. Various things happened where people got disinterested, or they died, or whatever. So finally the Venice Historical Society took it over. And if you want to donate $1 million or so, that would be great, because we're looking for money for the maintenance of this. We're giving it to the county once it's finished, and we've got enough money for all the displays and everything. But the Historical Society said that they would maintain, so if it needs any, like a new air conditioner or whatever, that's going to come from the Historical Society. So please write out a check if it's $25 or if it's $1 million. They're not fussy either way. We were hoping it would open this January. Mr. COVID had other plans, so I can't tell you when it's going to open. I can't even tell you when it's going to be totally finished, because now that the theater's back open, Tim is pretty busy there playing catch-up and designing things, but I know him. He's sneaking over there at midnight if that's the only time he's got. He's working on it, so we're so lucky that he loves Venice, and hopefully keep him forever because he's an asset at the theater. Anyway, so that's our big news about the arena. As far as the life of the circus in Venice, that was just a matter of the train tracks. It would still be here, but 1992, the railroad company said the tracks cannot hold the weight of the elephants and the train cars. So if you want to travel, you have to, bring the elephants by truck or something. Anyway, nobody could ever work a deal out. By then, Kenneth Feld had taken over for his father, and he was president of Feld Enterprises, which owns the circus, and now they own it. It's the biggest entertainment company in the world. They own monster truck shows, Disney on Ice, all the different ice shows, things like that. But anyway, in those days, he actually offered to give $3 million to the train company. And I think the train company just was tired of dealing with the circus. I don't know, but they turned it down. The city couldn't justify it because Venice could not justify giving $3 million to a business. Then every other business would want $3 million. Fred would want $3 million for a decorating company, right? Or maybe $4 million. So anyway, so we lost the circus soon after that. Clown College remained in Venice until 1996. And at that point, they had graduated 1,200 clowns. They didn't need that many, so they folded that tent too. But there are still people who live here. Tito Gaona and his family, famous aerialists, they live in Venice. There are people here who have done upholstery work for various things in the circus, or constructed things that some of the, like the wire acts, all, you know, whatever they need, and trapezes, things like that. There's a huge legacy of circus people here. Renata Gaona has become one of my very best friends. She has attitudes in dance that she just bought a few years ago. If you want to learn to dance, that is the place to go. They teach everything: tap dancing, ballroom dancing, ballet, whatever you want, hip hop. Amazing. I can't see me doing hip hop. I can't even see me doing a waltz actually right now, but that family is incredible. Their daughter was on the trapeze when she was 2. And Victoria is now ready to graduate from Venice High School. She never had anything but an A. She plays the violin. She's coming out with the Cotillion Society next year. And when she starts college, she'll have 2 years credit because she's been taking college classes instead of junior and senior high school classes. So, you know, there are underachievers around. She would not be one of them. She also teaches people how to do the silks. And at 14, she was offered a contract with Cirque du Soleil. She turned it down because she wants to be, I think, president of General Motors or something like that. So she has other aspirations. But maybe she'll start a big circus again, who knows. It's nice to see somebody that bright graduating locally, and, you know, the world is her oyster, I think. Does anybody have any questions at all about, yes, Fred? Oh, that's a good point, yes. How many people worked for the circus, not just the people that were performers, but all the people working behind the scenes, like the upholsterers and people that repaired the train cars and all of that sort of thing. There were so many that a lot of people said, what good is it to have the circus here? They're not contributing anything to town. So the owners of the circus, was Kenny Feld's father at the time, paid everybody in $2 bills, cash. And within about 4 days, $2 bills had flooded Venice because that circus was contributing a lot of money to this town. Besides the fact that it was a major draw. My parents had friends from Shaker Heights who were retiring about the time the circus came here, and they thought, wouldn't it be interesting to live in a place where there's the circus and you could watch them, you know, practice in the winter time and all that. And so they came down. And so my first trip to Venice, as I said, was 1959, and that was my parents' first time to see Venice. And by 1966, all of a sudden my parents called up and said, we just bought a place in Venice. We're going to live there for 4 months a year or whatever. And it was 4 months, and then it was 5 months. And then finally, after about 20 years, they sold the main house up in Cleveland, and they had a cottage up there too, which they kept. But they were down here most of the year. And I think it was really because their friends were fascinated with the circus. And so they got to be fascinated with the circus. And I was down here with my daughter, I think it was about 1974 or 75. It was the 100th anniversary of the Ringling Show. They had both shows, the Red Troupe and the Blue Troupe, and one massive production. Talk about advanced fanning fatigue. We all, you know, we sat there, we had intermission and all, but it was about 4 hours, and what a fabulous show. Because we saw the top animal acts from 2 big circuses, all the different trapeze acts, multiple clown acts. That was incredible. We paid for it. I think we wanted to sleep for 3 days afterwards, but it was so fabulous. And I'd never really been a circus fan. We went to the circus in Cleveland when it would come once a year. But seeing that and knowing that you could be right here and you're driving down, I was driving down the street one day in a rental car, and I saw this guy with a guitar in his back, and he was riding a bicycle. And when I passed him, he had a white face. He was a white-faced clown. So he probably was a student at Clown College, which was interesting. Any other questions about him? Yes? What kind of people? There are a lot of adults. There's a group right now of circus fans, and they meet on, once a month at Pepe's restaurant up in Sarasota. They have about 5 restaurants up there, and this is the one at 17th Street, and I can't remember the cross street. But they get about 50 people that turn out just to talk about circuses they've seen over the years. So there's still, even though we don't have a resident circus, there's still lots and lots of fans that come here. In January, one of the circus orchestra, there's retired people in the orchestra, they come and they have a big concert at Ringling. And the St. Martha's Church in Sarasota has the circus, basically it's a circus mass. And Father Jerry, who just died this past year, he was usually the officiator of it. He was head of the traveling people in the country, not just circus people, but anybody that travels with monster truck shows or, whatever they travel for. And when the circus was in Sarasota, it was the priest at St. Martha's who would bless the circus train before they left town. And so that has become synonymous with having this annual mass. I've been to about 3 or 4 of them. I hope that the Ringling Museum will get Father Jerry's outfits that he wore, because he had the most incredible vestments that were all hand embroidered by nuns. One, I'm not sure what it was called, but a big white top covering that had gold embroidered elephants all around the hem of it and the edge of the sleeves. I was in the needlework business for 20 years in Cleveland. That, I don't know how many hundreds of hours that took to make that one, just that one outfit. There was another priest from Detroit who had an incredible circus outfit with things embroidered on the back and all. It was worth it just to see what the priests were wearing at this thing. The third time I went, I actually had to sit on the stairs in the balcony because I got there too late. I was only, I was at like an hour before the thing was going to start, but I was already too late. Yes?
What happened to all the animals that were in the circus?
Well, that was interesting too. When Gunther died, which was July 17th in 2001, all the animals could not be just given to another trainer because they had grown up with Gunther. So the tigers and the lions all went to an animal preserve in Tampa. And when they were negotiating with Ringling, I was talking to the lady who owns this, and she said she told them that each tiger would have like an acre space with a big fence around it so they would be safe and the people would be safe, so you could go see them. But she said, the tigers need a place to swim. And the Ringling people said, but these tigers were born in captivity, they don't know how to swim. She said, trust me, they want to swim. Within 2 weeks of moving into that preserve, every one of those tigers was swimming. I've been there and seen them, and they were. I don't know how many are still alive because it's been so many years now, but yeah, they were well taken care of. The Ringling took the best care of animals. They had no animal could complain about the way they were treated. Veterinarians traveled with the show. They got really good care, and they were so loved, especially by Gunther. I mean, I don't know how many of you remember the commercial where he had the leopard around his neck. No leopard's going to be around your neck if he doesn't like you. And Gunther had a few scratches here and there, but they were love scratches. No animal ever tried to bite him or anything like that. So, everybody's gotten.
Wow.
Thank you so much. And a lot of local history, local color. And we have these wonderful books inside that Kim will sign if you'd like to get a book about the history of Venice. And then we'll welcome you next week. We do have, I think, Meg Loman's coming for the tree canopy.
You have to come and hear Meg Lomas. Brilliant.
Amazing. So we have so many great things. And also in Sarasota, we still have the high school, the Sailor Circus, and the Sailors
Yes.
Circus for training. The kids can still learn how to, the circus acts. And then with the Circus Conservatory as well is doing quite well. So there's still lots of remnants of the circus in our area.